Good morning. This is episode. Good morning. This is episode 18 of the Wise Mind Fireside Chats, the Wi-Fi chats. And we have decided today to have a conversation about fear and courage. And one of the reasons that we're doing this is because our good friend Julian has introduced us to this Riverside software. So we are all now filterless. You can see all of our wrinkles and blemishes. And actually, in seriousness, it's a brave thing. We're none of us the youngest people that we were, and making changes, growing and changing, comes with the exercise of courage. So I'm going to ask that we explore what is courage, how does it differ to bravery, and just ask for people to generally reflect on what fear and conquering fear looks like to you. So go ahead.
Well, I first want to know, is there a difference between courage and bravery? Because I myself might not be clear on what that is. It feels the same to me. I think courage is a noun, maybe, and bravery is the act of being courageous. I'm not sure. I don't know. I just made that up, pull that right out, of whatever. But I don't know the difference.
I think, and Brett, you can chime in on this, two frontline, or one retired, but one current frontline emergency service worker. I think bravery is the thing that we see from individuals when they're confronted with a singular one-off event. I think everybody has the ability to be brave. They might do it more than once or twice in their life, but it's a response to a situation. I think courage is something that comes from the repeated dedication of doing something that other people would find intensely frightening. I think courage is the sorts of things that we see in military veterans, in frontline emergency services, in nurses, in EDs, and things like that. Any thoughts on that one, Brett?
It's like the situation when it just pops up, how you handle that situation. And then the other one is kind of how you move through life or move through situations, right? Yeah, I don't even know if I'm 100% on that. It doesn't feel 100% for me. Like there's something, I don't know, needs more explaining.
I have the definition here. Like I had to look it up to get clear in my head what the difference is. So maybe this will help. First, it says bravery is an action, while courage is the endurance required to act in the face of fear, uncertainty, and adversity. But lower down the page, bravery is more spontaneous and involves setting fear aside. Courage is about having fear, being mindful of the risks, and making the conscious decision to do something anyway. So courage is more like a mindset or a way of being than bravery is just seeing something that makes you fearful or having fear about something and the act of doing it. Like it's just the spontaneous, I have to be brave right now and go to the dentist and get my tooth pulled. Courage is sort of like a mindset, a way of being.
And I got to say, I think that's pretty much where I started from. We know for you, and I'm going to pick on you here, Erika, that
Oh, uh-oh.
you give blood.
Oh,
Okay,
God, not
it,
willingly. Yeah.
it is a thing that's important to you, but it's not like you can just be brave and go. It takes time and effort for you to build up to go and do that, knowing the fear that it raises in you, the risk, which is that you have previously fainted or been on the brink of fainting. That for you is an act of courage. Running towards the burning building, Brett, that is an act of courage. You know that there is inherent risk and danger. You'd be insane not to feel some level of fear, but it's a risk you're prepared to take. You've got the training and the experience and your practical anchors to other examples of when this worked out okay for you. So that's where I see courage. And Julien, you've had a number of businesses that you've chosen to sell or to repurpose. You're an entrepreneur, which means you're invested in choosing a path that might work out but might not. So there's still courage involved in that. You might not have to be brave to be an entrepreneur, but you definitely have to have courage to play the markets and work out what is potentially beneficial. You are muted, my friend, and I believe these are words of wisdom.
I think especially in entrepreneurship, it's kind of a must have the courage, because that's where the success is. Like, especially when you're like starting a new project, what the purpose of it is having a good idea, is making something happen that most of people think wasn't that a good idea at the first hand. So it's kind of a prerequisite, and it's always like going through uncertainty, because you never know if it's gonna work out or not. So you have to accept that, and also like handle it in your everyday life, because it can be a burden sometime, and but that the way it is. Like when you explore new ways to do stuff, of course there is courage needed, because it's unknown, and it's always like moving to new places where nobody else have been before most of the time. So yep. And it's also like take a little bit of bravery, because you also face a lot of unexpected events, and that's are not fun sometimes, when stuff hit the fan. That's just the way it is also. And the role of an entrepreneur is to handle those kind of events. That's not the role of the rest of the team. That's the role of the CEO to handle it. So yeah, that's a part of the job. Yeah.
One thing we talk about frequently is the way that we model and nurture these things that we converse on. So I'm just wondering if anybody's got thoughts on that. We often hear parents or see parents kneeling down in front of their children and saying, "Oh, you've just got to be brave." And I know, Erika, you're a great believer in allowing people to feel the emotion. For instance, fear. We know from a chemical perspective, it is just a personal decision. We make the perspective filter as to whether we're interpreting that cocktail of chemicals as fear or excitement. But where do we nurture and how do we model bravery and courage for our little ones?
I think it's important to acknowledge that you're fearful of something, right? Before you do it, when you're modeling it for your kids. Like let's say the dentist, because the dentist is scary for kids sometimes. As the adult, it's okay for your kids to hear or see you say, "Oh God, I have to go to the dentist. Don't want to go to the dentist. I'm afraid, I don't like the way that feels, but I know that this is good for me and something that I have to do, and I'll feel better once it's done." So, and then you go to the dentist and come back and your kids see that you came back and you're fine. That's the only way that they can connect that was a brave act, or that a mom showed courage going to do something she was afraid of doing in the first place. Shows them that. But the only way they would know that there was any courage involved, or bravery involved, would they'd have to know what was happening for you first. So I'll use the giving blood. Like when I have to give blood, I don't give blood willingly. Like it's not like I go to blood drives because I'm so fearful of it. So I don't actively volunteer to do that kind of stuff, but it's if I have to go. My son knows that I am terrified of giving blood. Like he knows, everybody knows, anybody who knows me knows that I don't want to give blood because I talk about it. So I talk about it. I show the anxiety that comes because it's it feels real in the moment for me. It takes a few days worth of getting my mindset to be a place where I can feel brave enough to show up, to go give blood. And then I give the blood, I come home and I celebrate that it was nothing what I thought it was going to be. So every single time I do that, it's an act of courage on my part. Now, my son, apples don't fall far from the tree. When he was younger anyway, would have the same issues. I never told him to be afraid, right? And but obviously my talking made him have his own fears of doing it. And I would go in with him and talk him through it and just sort of be there with him. So he showed his own act of bravery and courage, stepping in to do it. So, like you said, I do believe you have to first acknowledge the fear that it's there, and then show the courage to do whatever it is that you're fearful of, and then come back to celebrate and talk about how it was for you, in order for your kids to make the connection. They wouldn't know you're being courageous if they didn't know you had a fear in the first place.
I think that's so true. Quoting Kane Ramsey, he recently said that you cannot mentor or coach somebody beyond an area that they have had some education in. So if you don't speak to somebody, and I mentioned education and training with Brett about his firefighter duties, you need that preparation to understand that this is what you're going to face. These are the likely physical reactions that you might experience. This is the most likely outcome. And then at the end of it, we can talk about how it went, how we felt, what went well and what didn't, and prepare ourselves for something in the future. And whilst we're talking about fear and courage, that is a model that we can take to absolutely any other area of growth and development.
Yeah, and I think when you want to overcome those fears, whatever it is, whatever area it is, I think like that's what can be helpful. Also, I think we can all rely on our own truth, like what we believe in, like I'm capable of, I'm confident I can overcome it. So that's why I can like go for face the fear. And I think that's also like um an indicator for us to build competencies, because like if you want to act courageously, you identify your fear, and then you can improve yourself to be able to overcome it.
I think there's another element that comes into this, which is our faith in the outcomes that we create. And we're actually going to have a conversation in just a few minutes with another good friend of ours, Gary. And before we separate to have that, I'd just like to get some final observations on fear and courage. So from what we've discussed, any thoughts? Who wants to kick us off?
I'll start. I think that you can be fearful and still endure, and I think that that is what courage is. Having fear, but enduring and persevering among it, in the fear.
Yeah, I like that. Perseverance, endurance, persistence, grit, determination, they're all elements of personality, character that will help and benefit, because it's the stagnant mind, the fearful mind that won't allow. I mean, everybody in this room knows my favorite book and then subsequently favorite movie of all time is Dune. And as a child, I learnt the litany against fear because I was scared of many things as a, I don't know, 12, 13-year-old, I think I was when I first read that. And to have that and to be able to repeat it in the way that they used it in the book gave me that pause, practicing that pause that we speak about, reminding myself that if I face my fear and let it pass, then there'll only be me left. That'll be the last thing standing. So thank you.
Can go next about the fear also. Like I think like there is like two type of fear. There is like the reasonable one that's protect us. Like you're on the side of a cliff, don't fall out, you're gonna be dead. Like that's an emergency stuff, and that's serious and reasonable to follow. And there is also like the second fear, that's when it comes to limiting beliefs and the way we are, and those one are needed to be faced with courage. And I think that's where we can all improve in our life.
Fear and courage. I feel like everybody said everything I wanted to say. I'm like, no, why are you saying that? I wanted to say that. Yeah, fear I think is healthy, and courage is needed, right, to move you through it. And experience goes along with that whole equation, because as you go through certain things, you may have that fear coming up within you, and then you have the courage to walk through it, but the experience to say and judge where it sits within you. Is it like what Julien was saying, right? What part is it? Is it the thought pattern, or is it that you're on the side of a cliff and it's really loose terrain or whatever? So the experience is to kind of put things into its place of what kind of feel and where it sits, and having the courage to walk through it. They go great hand in hand. They really do. Yeah.
Thanks, Brett. I think this is definitely a subject that we could come back to and explore deeper. But for now, I thank you all for your thoughts and insights, and hopefully you'll all be able to join us again for episode 20, which is going to be on spirituality and faith, and we may well explore fear and courage a bit more within that one as well. So for now, thank you, and we'll catch up with you again soon.